So the idea here is to answer comments from this last YouTube video, but I realize it's been like a month since I've seen it, since it was still in review. So while I am waiting for people to show up, my camera's being cool. I'm gonna watch that video. Hi. I'm gonna watch that video real fast. It's been a while because I'm sure some of these comments that I'm gonna answer have something to do with some of these. Everybody watch that last one? That's where I go. Hello. Okay, what? This might be a good way for me to actually answer comments like this because it's a lot of typing of a lot of the same stuff. And it's kind of fun then. Well, Florence was there the other day, actually. There's a bug in there. It was. Let's see. Skipping through it. All right. I think you can probably answer these questions with them. Seeing all this stuff. All right. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them in there. But I'm just going to go ahead and start doing this. So I'm just going to try this out just because I'm behind on a lot of things. I have traveled too much this year. That's kind of apparent. I went to, as you know, I went to India, and then I went to Guatemala, and then I went and did some out-of-town research stuff, and then came back and did it again, and then did it again. So there's just been too much. So I'm behind. I actually got to run my first call in a while today, and I'm actually still on too. So if I need to, if I get a call, I got to run out of here, but I don't know if that's going to happen tonight. It is October. It is chilling out quickly, and that means that rattlesnakes are going to be not as active. We could actually kind of calm down, but there's still a little bit of time left before it really happens. So I'm going to go through some of these comments, and the ones that I answer on here, I'll just reply that I've answered it in the live. So these are all in reference to that one with the Mojave rattlesnakes that Jeff just put up the other day. So one guy here is, for right off the bat, something nice and negative for me. Venom expert in all caps. Forgot to mention tissue, muscle damage, oftentimes leaving massive scars. Yeah, with hemotoxins. With cytotoxins and toxins that destroy tissue. The thing that a lot of people are interested in about Mojave rattlesnakes in particular are the neurotoxins, which are not the toxins that do that. Of course, all rattlesnakes are going to have a complex cocktail of toxins, but the reason why people talk about Mojave rattlesnakes so much is because of the neurotoxins. No, I did not give a full rundown of all venom makeups and all the things they can do. I was addressing the topic of the title and the video, which is the neurotoxins. So I'll just let them know. I answered this in a live. Thanks. All right. I'm so angry. So angry. Venom expert. I'm not a venom expert, but I probably know more than you think. Okay. I'll go over here and check it out. Kind of bounce back and forth. Philip's asking, can rattlesnakes survive in an area which gets snow in the winter? Yes, they do. They go underground, so they have all kinds of dens. In fact, the dens that are the largest are the ones where it is coldest, because they have fewer places that they can actually survive. That's why here in Arizona, dens are so small and numerous. So instead of having 200 or 300 animals stuffed into one crevice like you might have in South Dakota. You have more rattlesnakes than that by far, but they're in like ones and twos, just kind of stuffed everywhere because not freezing to death is not hard. I've also seen rattlesnakes in the snow in Idaho at dens out in the 40s and crawling around in the 40s when it is actively snowing. So, they do need and operate best when it's warmer, but it's not like after it drops below 50 that they will die or something like that. Do we keep rattlesnakes and king snakes together when we rescue, or do we separate them? We separate them. That would not be good for the reasons that you probably imagine. King snakes are going to eat it. All right. Michelle is saying she thinks the rattlesnakes are beautiful. I certainly agree. Here's another one. I'm not even going to try to read these usernames because they're it's just a bunch of characters. But anyway, I read that the same type of antivenom works on all the rattlesnakes. So if one is bitten, you don't need to identify the type of rattlesnake. That is true. So antivenom, there are two types approved for use in the United States, Crofab and Antivenom. Both of them will work for multiple types of rattlesnakes. Crofab is a polyvalent antivenom, meaning that it's made from a number of different venom types. So it will work for a Mojave rattlesnake. It'll work for a Western diamondback, and depending on what else you're bitten by, it will work more or less depending on its effect on some of those core components. In addition, doctors and vets, I'm not a doctor, so you shouldn't ask me anything about surgery or anything like that or medication. Similarly, doctors are not necessarily well-versed in snakes. I have seen many vets misidentify and mistreat Mojave rattlesnake bites, or assuming it's a Mojave rattlesnake and it's going to do one thing or another, or misdiagnose as a Mojave bite in an area where Mojave rattlesnakes don't live, or whatever, or just fundamentally misunderstand what's happening there, and sometimes to the point where it kills the dog. So just because you can identify the snake or maybe take a picture of it or bring the snake in doesn't mean that the doctor or vet is going to know to positively identify that, and certainly not to a point where it's going to meaningfully affect outcome. So no, don't bring rattlesnakes to a hospital. You don't need to wait and take pictures of it. It's much less complicated than we tend to want to make it, which is just, if you're bitten by a rattlesnake, go to the hospital. They will treat symptoms as they occur. Over here, let's see. Oh, tell that person I answered. Yeah, hi everybody. It's been a little while. I know there's been a lot going on, so I'm glad to be here. I miss talking about rattlesnakes. I've been talking about rattlesnakes, but not to you. I've been doing other rattlesnake stuff, so it's been fun. Actually, we just got back. We're going to do a video about this, but we just got back from the Audubon Appleton Whittle Research Ranch in southeastern Arizona, where we were originally brought in to do some relocation of some rattlesnake dens that are underneath the houses and the buildings that are at the station, the research station, and there was no place to relocate them to, so we made some places that could be done. Pretty interesting thing that we're doing. So we're actually relocating an entire den of rattlesnakes with their help. Does Crofab work for copperhead and cottonmouth bites? Yes. Works for all of the major groups of pit viper in the United States, which Gistrodon, which is the genus of those two, are part. All right, here's another comment from the video, and I'm going to read them all, even if they're bad. And if you leave us a bad comment, and I'll match your energy. I don't need to take shit from people about snakes. Great videos. Two families moved out of the city. They should enjoy the country life better. I'm afraid of snakes and flying. Good thing I've not been in a plane with snakes. Yeah, I think I watched Snakes on a Plane one time, and I don't remember any of it. Maybe I should watch that again. Maybe I should. get into some whiskey first. Okay, here's another. This is a good one. I've been doing work with some property just south of Ultramine by Wickenburg. Owner says he's found 2 snakes in 18 months, but this didn't specify that they were rattlesnakes because of the work I'm doing, trudging through brush and washes, picking up old piles of construction debris. I'm hyper vigilant about watching my step. In the 3 months I've been here, there have been no snakes, just one set of sidewinder tracks in a wash. Not that you want to have a snake disrupting my work, but is he incredibly lucky or unlucky to not have seen any snakes in the area? Or been blindly working over them, meaning other snakes out there, right? Well, many. So that area, and I don't mind calling it out anymore. I normally wouldn't do this with places that we know snakes exist, but that whole area is about to become a freeway, so I think it matters less. That area is actually famous for abundance of rattlesnakes. So this actually kind of goes to show a point, is that you can live in a house next to a place with rattlesnakes and have rattlesnakes everywhere in the area and have them be incredibly abundant. And you may never see them. And then when you see one day, it doesn't mean that there's more or less. It means that you just happened to see one. They are very good at avoiding detection. They're very good at avoiding predation. They're good at not being seen by the animals that they are hunting. And if you're working in an area and you're providing that kind of stress response to them where they're trying to avoid you, that means that those animals are also learning how to avoid you at the same time. So just the fact that you're there working means that the rattlesnakes, the probably numerous rattlesnakes that live at or pass through the area that you're working, are learning to avoid you. That is exactly why the people that kill the snakes that they find on their property are not helping themselves, because all they're doing are killing the inevitable, the wildlife that's on their property, and they're killing the ones that are most knowledgeable and most experienced and best successful at avoiding them. So it works the opposite. Things get complicated in real life. All right, let's do another one. Yeah, I got a call, and we've gotten this a few times. We did take a little break from long form videos. We had a couple of reasons for that. We needed to refactor a couple things in our workflow over here. And rather than serve up some videos that we think were not very good, we thought to just, we'll just kind of end it on those India videos for a little bit and figure out what we're going to do and then start up again. So now we're starting up again. We got lots of material. We're going to be going through the winter. Things might slow down a little bit in the winter, but that's when we'll get into some of the other kind of interesting things, like, somebody has a question about something. Maybe we should just make a full video about it, So things will change a little bit, but we're basically in a better place for next spring. We're planning on bringing in maybe some new people, doing some interesting things, that kind of stuff. So that's all part of it. It means sometimes we got to take a break to figure that out. All right, here's another one. So good you did not have to crawl for too long under the house in the heat. Jeff, what a beautiful Mojave rattlesnakes. Oh, thank you. Sandra, I appreciate you watching a lot of stuff. I know you always have nice things to say, which is nice because a lot of times people do not have nice things to say. That's one of the interesting things about shorts, is that a lot of people in the long form ones are kind of more, these are our people that have watched us and learned from us. And the shorts are people that just kind of roll in there and say something about a shotgun and then leave. So very different audiences between the two. We're going to be doing a lot more shorts, but we're definitely going to be like, trying to bring them over here. Oh, wow. Thanks. I didn't even see what those, what are, oh, these are like super thanks things. Thanks, old man Gib and Philip. I appreciate that. I didn't even know you could do that. I'm so bad at this platform. Well, I'll get to your question. Do you have any removal people over here by Quartzsite? We don't. Occasionally we'll have somebody over there that we just kind of like will refer over to. We don't have anybody that is actually affiliated with us that's over in that area. But I'll send out an email or two and to see if there's anyone that's still over there that I know that might be operating. I think the closest people that we know, shoot, I don't even know if they're still there anymore, are more in like the Lake Havasu area. It should be close enough. So, but I'll see if I can. We thought about maybe even putting up a directory or something. Do Gila monsters all have different markings patterns? Yes, they do. Whatever they're born with, they keep forever. So it's like a fingerprint. So yeah, they all have different markings. You can tell them apart by paying attention to those markings, and identify them again later. Rattlesnakes do too. Like if you look at their tail banding in particular, like we just did. Part of this project is that's how we are identifying these snakes. Is we took photographs of their tail banding, and that's how we're able to tell who's who. All right, here's another one here. It seems when monsoons were up in Arizona, we tend to see more rattlesnakes. Is it a coincidence? Yep. Or no, it's not a coincidence. Yes, you're noticing something that's factual. So the monsoon is going to be peak of rattlesnake activity. Not rattlesnake encounters, but rattlesnake activity. Meaning in the spring, more people tend to run into them because rattlesnakes and humans are active at the same time. However, in the monsoon, when that comes, there's finally moisture. And this makes it so that it's safe for them to do a lot of things, not only because they're not going to desiccate, they're not going to dry out when it is just breathing the air. It's also going to stabilize the temperature and lower the temperature. It's going to get rid of some of those temperature swings. It's going to make it so that they feel comfortable to travel long distances to basically be outside. So in those situations, that's when you see it. It's also the beginning of the birthing season. So think what happens right when the monsoon starts, right when it hits here in like mid July. All these animals that have been hiding underground, waiting for to finally get a drink, they all come out at once. They all need to shed their skin. They're all hungry. They need to eat. They need to move around. Any of the females that are gravid need to move to a place to give birth, and then they give birth, and then they shed skin, and all their babies shed skin, and then they're hungry, and they all go out, and then they're now available again. And the second mating season starts, so the males are finding them, and then they have to stuff themselves with as much food as they possibly can before the rain ends and it starts to get cool again. All of that takes place within 2 months, all of it. And in that time, there are a lot of opportunities for a person to run across a rattlesnake. So that's why that happens. A lot of it just happens at night, so most people don't even know about it. Have you ever seen someone with a pet rattlesnake? I've seen a lot of people with pet rattlesnakes. I used to have rattlesnakes that I couldn't even, I would maybe consider them a pet before I could justify them by having this business a long time ago. There's actually a lot of people that do have them and keep them and enjoy them, and it's not a bad thing. Like I think it's a good thing in the right hands. It does also mean though that there is a hidden majority. So for every person that has 10 rattlesnakes or fewer, something in a well-developed, curated collection where everything is healthy and it's long-term and all that, there are a dozen times that have a Western Diamondback in a fishbowl or something that they just caught in the desert and shouldn't have, and that snake is not going to survive that person get hurt. And then a lot of times it ends up just going, there's people that collect rattlesnakes when they find them in the desert and they take them home and keep them for a little while and then just need to get rid of them. There's one guy that comes here from Nevada that I know about that just comes and collects whatever he can and then doesn't even know what to do with it and just gives it to people. There is definitely a downside to it. I won't soapbox too much about the pet trade with rattlesnakes, but yeah, it happens. I wish it happened less, to be honest. I wish there was some sort of sensible permitting system that would maybe, permits and licensing and responsible keeping and all that, and just personal responsibility can look a little bit different when you are on the side of things that has to help clean up the mess, when somebody that shouldn't have something has it, and then they have to do something with it. And I'm on that side, unfortunately. You know what? Let me see. I actually lived in Oregon when I was a kid. I just can't remember where Sisters. I think Sisters is in the east. It's been a long time. Okay, no, it's not the east. It's right there. Okay. You know, I don't know the specifics. Okay, yeah, there's the Willamette. Okay, yeah, I should know that. Near Bend, yeah, I should. Yeah, so there should be. There are rattlesnakes in that area. I don't know too much about exactly where the lines are between northern Pacifics and southern Pacifics there. The only rattlesnakes that I've ever looked for in Oregon were further south near Roseburg. There's a couple dens, but I would imagine that the ones that are in Bend and around Bend are Great Basin rattlesnakes, and when you get up into the mountains, they may still be. I can't answer it confidently. I would say it's either northern Pacifics or Great Basins, or maybe an intergrade, depending on exactly where. I wouldn't say that they're difficult to find though in those cases. It just would take different tactics. In fact, I think if I were to go there in the right time, it may not even be difficult to locate them. It would just depend on what habitat is available. Sorry I didn't have a really specific answer, but I think if they're there, they shouldn't be that difficult to locate. Why do rattlesnakes in general flick their tongues ever so slowly, and why in common with other snakes? So the tongue is doing a number of different things. So first, it is smelling, essentially. It's bringing in molecules. It's tasting, it's smelling the air, bringing in those particles to come in, and then they can see what's in the air and also which direction it's coming from, because of that bifurcation in there. There are different methods that can do this best. So if the rattlesnake is tracking something, it might be giving a series of short little tongue flicks that are coming out and even touching the ground to try to track something. If it's smelling something in the air, it might be longer waving tongue flicks. And some of those also have some defensive posturing as well too, that really long, where the tongue comes out and almost like shakes and then goes down again. Those are things that they do in more of a defensive posture that might indicate to a predator that, hey, I'm here and I see you, and don't bite me because I'll bite you, kind of thing. So the tongue does a lot of different things, and often by the way that the tongue is moving is one of the indicators that we can tell the snake is defensive, the snake is following something, the snake is annoyed with our presence and is maybe going to start rattling or be disturbed if we don't move. So there's a lot to it. It's interesting. I have a fly in here, so when you go and see me doing like this, sometimes it's just, it's kind of annoying. Okay, coming from a non-snake person, people should have to go through a 6-month course. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know what the exactly what the amount of training or experience or anything that should be required. I think that's a whole debate, but I think it would be very useful for somebody to at least show some minimum competence and decision making and able to do this. I think one of there's a guy in the West Valley who used to do a lot of live TikToks and stuff that kept getting booted. This person has a number of rattlesnakes in just open bare containers with no hides or inadequate housing. Takes them out, holds them just using hands. Just ridiculously irresponsible behavior, dangerous, and also has a bunch of kids in the house, sometimes coming and going while this is happening. Just the worst kind of behavior you can imagine with these kinds of animals. That is somebody that would not have the qualities of decision making to responsibly keep something like this. I think that is, how do you measure that kind of thing? That's probably not something that I would, be able to decide meaningfully. But I think that it would be nice to know if I were a managing agency, who all has what and what they're doing with them. So you can at least kind of check and have something to where, like, you know what, you held a rattlesnake in your hand with kids running around. You can no longer do this. You're too dumb. You must be this smart to ride this ride, and you are down here somewhere. So yeah, I think that's a complicated one, but I do wish that there was some kind of permitting. Okay, do rattlesnakes and gopher snakes get in and out of people's travel trailers more often than we know? Not really. I actually can't think of any instances of one being inside of one of those. I'm sure that they are occasionally, but I don't recall. I don't think that rattlesnakes would go into them. I think that maybe if there's a lot of rodents inside of one, then maybe a gopher snake or a king snake could get into one of those. But especially if it's not unattended forever, like any structure that doesn't have somebody that goes into it for a long time, will start to get more rodents and have other things start to reclaim it. But it's not that they can't. We've never, to my knowledge, removed a snake from inside a travel trailer. So probably nothing to worry. I don't, unfortunately. There are individuals here and there. For the most part, the communities are pretty small, so there isn't such a support network like there is here. It's also kind of hard too because the distances. So you might have a small community, I guess, like take a relatively large one like Tuba City. In order to they could do Tuba City, but anywhere else is going to take them an hour and a half to get there. So it's hard to actually have that service. I would just say probably the best bet would be to just get into whatever your local Facebook group is, or next door or whatever, and just kind of see who's around. There's probably somebody that is a local that is just a snake enthusiast that does this kind of thing. I was at Basking Rock with pregnant females. He was raised up 10 to 12 inches, and he seemed to be pushing his way through them. What was he doing? Oh, at a Basking Rock. I was thinking. So if he was raised up 10 to 12 inches and he seemed to be pushing his way through them, it sounds like he might have been responding to maybe another male that was there. Or potentially, depending on how things are, or how close you are, or what you were doing. I've had males challenge me as if I'm a snake. That sounds silly, but it's actually easy to replicate. I've shown that in a short before of me picking a fight with a male speckled rattlesnake over a female, and it raises up and fights me with the hook and all that. So, but it sounds like it's moving up to kind of do that. The challenge, if it hits another male, it'll do that to like move forward with its head way up off the ground like that. I would say that's probably a response, if I'm reading the description well, to either another male or a perceived male. It's protecting that area. Philip, if you are thinking about getting a snake, corn snake is a good one. Those are great animals. They're relatively easy to keep. They're interesting. They do a lot of interesting things. They're active. They live a long time. They can be really pretty. They're inexpensive. I would say, the best thing you should do is maybe find a group on social media for corn snakes and spend some time in there just asking people like, hey, would like to get into this. What is the best setup I can do? You're going to watch a bunch of people fight about different things, but anything that's in that range of whatever you see, is going to be good. I think just make sure that you have the right light and heat and all that. It's such a well kept or an animal that's kept so often that you shouldn't have any trouble finding good information about that. So yeah, corn snake is a great beginning snake. Do I have a rough estimate or any comments when a rattlesnake is aware of a person is approaching, like someone from 15 feet? Yeah. So wait, hold on. Let me read it again. So rattlesnakes, there's not like any magic number like when they're aware. You can walk right past a rattlesnake and it's not necessarily aware of you. I also have a Hopi rattlesnake den that I visit once a year that I have to sneak up from the side, because at 100 to 200 feet away, they will start to go in and avoid me from there, just watching me walk up to it. So I think there's a lot of factors there. I think that there's this idea out there that rattlesnakes have really terrible eyesight. And that may be true. They may not see certain things in ways that we would consider to be great, but they do display a lot of instances where eyesight is probably pretty good. They can detect the presence of me or detect a predator from a pretty good distance and other features. So, I think a more relevant question maybe is, at what point after you're detected does the rattlesnake feel it needs to respond or do something? And that's harder to know, because their first response is to do absolutely nothing. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly when a rattlesnake sees you, because when it does, its desired first response is to completely do nothing at all and just take note. I'm going to grab another video comment off of this. All right. That's good. There's a bunch of them. Okay. I'm just going to go to the ones that have or questions, I think. Actually, this is more of a comment, but it's an interesting one. My first close-up encounter, and these are comments, by the way, if anyone's looking, these are comments from the last video about Mojave rattlesnakes that we just put up a couple days ago. My first close-up encounter with the Mojave rattlesnake, I was very excited and also kind of disappointed. The disappointment was because all it did was get into a ball and look at my friend and myself. It was the first to approach it, so I gave it a little warning, but not for long. I walked away from the encounter after making sure we got off the asphalt and back to the desert where it belonged. And I thought that was not scary at all. Very well-behaved rattlesnake. Yeah, that's what Mojave rattlesnakes do. Our brains. This is not to say, because this is a thing. Mojave rattlesnakes can be very defensive. They can and will strike at a person, sometimes repeatedly, and can be very defensive. So can other rattlesnakes. So the way our brains work is interesting with these. Is if you think, oh, there is a Mojave rattlesnake, this is the really aggressive kind, and then you go up, and then the snake acts in a very predictably defensive way. You go, wow, that was a very aggressive rattlesnake. Where you don't necessarily do that with just the diamondback or any other snakes that you see. So if you're taking note of those things, it creates a strong bias towards the idea that one type of animal is always aggressive while another one isn't. This is confirmation bias. This is a very well understood and demonstrable part of our brains, and how we're often led in bad directions because of our preconceived notions. And Mojave rattlesnakes are a very good example of that, to where the idea itself, the expectation itself that they are super aggressive animals, seems to manifest itself, just snakes acting as they would into these animals. And then of course you get the fun comments about them chasing you. And I saw somebody comment one the other day that and I'm not telling you anything I didn't tell him. I told my response to that comment is that this is complete bullshit, what you're saying. He said that he approached a den of like hundreds of Mojave rattlesnakes, and they none of them rattled, but they all just started coming after him at once. And so at first, that's a lie. There's some things that are misconceptions. That's a lie, and he knows it's a lie. That's the fun thing about lies, is liars know that they're lying. But once an animal is expected to do a certain thing, then it goes out, and then it's in the culture. It's out there. There's not much you can do about it, and it can flavor all those experiences. So yeah, here comes this gentleman, runs into a Mojave rattlesnake, acts like a normal animal, doesn't freak out, acts scared, acts defensive, crawls away. Yeah, that's what they do. It would be fun to meet the famous aggressive Mojave rattlesnake, but you know how it goes. Here's another one. Story: I was told you had to identify the snake that bit you for proper anti-venom. Is that true? It is not true. I gotta respond to that one that I answered in the live. Okay. Okay, here's a good one. When talking about rattlesnake bites, you stated that if bitten, you would be okay, although a little broker. How about addressing why antivenom is so much more expensive in the U.S. than other countries? Several years ago, I think Venom 1 was on Animal Planet members. Someone saying antivenom in the States at that time was approximately $1,000 per vial, but only $100 per vial in other countries. Please explain. Okay, so yeah, $1,000 a vial. It's like $12,000 a vial, or sometimes less. It can be a lot. It is really expensive. So I don't talk about this a whole lot because I think people perceive it as a political answer, but it is not. In fact, that the exact same medications here, and I'm speaking about antivenom, especially there's a new one, Bioclon, so Antivenom. And I don't know a lot of the inner workings of the commercialization of a lot of these things, but yeah, the antivenom in other countries is incredibly less expensive. If you're going to import some and get permits to bring in antivenom for cobras or something in other countries, it might be $100 or something or less. Where here, it's going to be many thousands of dollars. The reason why people think this is political talk is because this has nothing to do with antivenom. This has little to do with the producers of antivenom. This has to do with the United States healthcare system, where these drugs are not intended to be paid for at face value, but negotiated down by an insurance company, so that $12,000, let's say $10,000 cost, by the time it's whittled down through that process, what the actual insurance company pays is much less. But if you don't have that benefit or a team of lawyers acting on your behalf, then you're left with that ridiculous bill and you lose your house. So that is a problem. It is a huge problem. And that is, if someone's bitten and they don't have insurance, they'll survive. It's going to hurt, but wow. Bankruptcy, like major problems, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And I think that is just awful. So I'm going to leave that there, because then it will start turning into political talk, which is not what we do here. But it's not possible to discuss why antivenom is so ridiculously expensive here without also addressing why a Band-Aid in a hospital is so ridiculously expensive. So I'll leave that there. Okay, let me get another question out of the chat. I know you can't specifically age a snake by counting rattles, but can you tell if a rattlesnake still has its original button? Yeah, you can. Actually, give me a second here. Let me see if I can. Hello, everybody. Okay. This box of rattles. These are rattles that have fallen off of rattlesnakes in our collection over time, or if I see one on a road, I can take it because, well, they're educational. I can give them to schools. I can give them to kids. There's lots of reasons you can use a rattle. So here is a rattle. I'm not sure if you're even be able to see this, honestly. Oh, yeah, you can see it just fine. Here's a rattle that's broken off. Okay, you can see that it has that little weird notch at the end here. That is where the button has broken off. So see how this rattle is kind of uniform? This animal is still growing a little bit, but had slowed down quite a bit. Where like this rattle, This snake is an old adult. It's not growing at all. Every segment is exactly the same size. And again, its button is broken off. But here's one that has an intact button. Let me put it up against my shirt so you can see the contrast. See it there? Actually, you know what? Yeah, that's there. This is kind of like a little pokey. So it has a little rounded end on it. So this last segment here that has this rounded end and then the larger rounded end, with the last part here, that's actually one segment. It's not articulated. And this first part is the thing that they're born with. And then they shed their skin and they get that first little segment. And then the second shed, it moves free and then it can make sound. And there's all kinds of different, sometimes these rattles are very small. Here's a tiny rattle from a Massasauga. And this is from an old adult, but it's not very big. So there is a lot you can tell from the rattles themselves, more than age. So a reason why baby rattlesnakes, where'd it go? Whenever I try to scroll on this thing, it goes whoop and disappears. Is there a reason why behind why baby rattlesnakes have a bad reputation? Just pure misinformation and cultural desire for that misinformation. So there's two components of this. One of those is the idea that baby rattlesnakes are going to result in worse bites because they don't know how to control their venom and they give you all they have and they just kill people. Or the adults, it's ridiculously false. It's been disproven numerous times, and in other topics that might be enough to where, you know what? Here's this thing that is false. It's been proven to be false. There's no evidence for it. Blah blah blah. But that's not the way that we operate when it comes to rattlesnakes, an animal that is culturally important to the West. So that fact, even when disproven, will continue. It is important to the identities of people in the West. So when you tell somebody or prove to somebody that baby rattlesnakes are not worse than adults, it is defended. People act as if they're being personally attacked. And from their perception, they very well may be thinking that you're attacking them. You're attacking their culture. So it's this whole thing is like being right about that or having proof about that is not enough to meaningfully address that. Another example of that same reason, honestly, why people still think that Benadryl is a treatment or a delayed reaction or anything for snake bites. It is not. It doesn't work. Even Johnson & Johnson had to come out and say, "Hey, everybody, stop giving people and dogs Benadryl for snake bites. You're just killing your dogs." But people love it. I've been kicked out of a couple of Facebook groups now because I mentioned that somebody says my dog was bitten by a rattlesnake, but don't worry, I gave it Benadryl. It's all good. And I was like, no, take your dog to the vet. You're going to kill your dog because of that. And people just shut it down. They would rather have their dog die than be wrong about Benadryl. It's silly, but that's how humans are. And the reason and the insistence on baby rattlesnakes being more dangerous than adults, even though it's been disproven numerous times, is more to do with us than it does anything to do with snakes. All right, another one from the video. Let's see. One of them things bites you, it ends with a game over screen. Actually not. Rattlesnake bites in the United States can be dangerous, but they are very seldom deadly. I mean, death by rattlesnake in the United States is, considering how many people are in contact with rattlesnakes, anyone that lives in the West, anyone that lives not in the middle of the city in the West, it's a lot of people. Anyone that lives in the Southeast, sometimes in the city, everywhere, there's a lot of snakes. There's a lot of people. In Arizona, every year, the death toll, which from the way that people act, you would expect to be just piles of bodies. It is 0 this year, 0 last year, 0 the year before. I mean, keep going back. There was one death in 2014 that was, I think that was the last one in a while. So it is the one of the yeah. To say that being bitten is equates to death is incredibly untrue. That's nice. We got some good compliments and stuff. That's nice. How much does Rattlesnake Solutions charge for a removal? It's a good question, and people ask that a lot. So it depends. There's no one size fits all price for it. It depends on the availability of an agent, how far they are away, perceived time and difficulty, that kind of thing. It's not per snake. So if we go to a place and there are 10 rattlesnakes there, there's not like a person. It's just for the time. It costs the same for that one thing. And it's also the same cost if we go there and there are no rattlesnakes. That's why we ask so many questions before we come out, because we want to make sure that we're actually providing a service. Another thing that's really important is we do not want to make a single dime off of fear. So if we don't think we can actually capture a snake, or the snake clearly has left, or the odds of it actually being found are low, we're very careful to present that as such. So we're not, we're basically, it's for time. So that cost can be anywhere between $100 and $200 typically. It just depends again. So, and those funds go to do a lot of different things, including all the research that we do. Do one more from the video comments. That's it for those. Okay, well that's fine, because I've been doing those for almost an hour. So I'm gonna answer the ones that are in the chat still, and then I think I will go eat something. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, let's see what we got. Just looking for questions. Have we ever considered putting a boroscope or a camera down a den where the rattlesnakes are there? Yeah, I've done that. A lot of the times it doesn't help a ton, just because of the way that the rock faces are. Like they go up and move around. And a lot of times you can just see them anyway. You can check presence by just looking in there. And we don't want to bother them too, but there's definitely times that we've done that before. What rattlesnake venom is most toxic? I wish there was a super simple answer to this, but there is not. So I'll give you the simplest answer that I can, which is probably unsatisfying, but it's what we got. So there is a method of measuring effectiveness of venom called LD50, which is basically take a controlled amount of venom and inject it into 100 mice. And then what's the smallest dose necessary to kill half of them, to kill 50% of them. And then rating that by that dose, or the smallest amount of venom is more potent. In those tests, I've seen it go back and forth between tiger rattlesnake being the most potent venom drop for drop. And sometimes the Mojave rattlesnake is there too. But that has nothing to do, or very little to do, with actual effect in a defensive or predatory bite, which are also two different things. Venom yield is going to have a lot to do with that. So it doesn't matter, a tiger rattlesnake can be incredibly toxic, but getting a shot glass full of venom from a big Western diamondback is much more dangerous. A big dose of venom from a canebrake rattlesnake, it's 5 feet long and has neurotoxic components in its venom that can quickly become a deadly bite if not treated effectively right away. So toxicity is one factor that is a different number or factor than which bite is most dangerous. And I think a lot of times you may not be this may not be what you're asking, but a lot of times when people say which is the most toxic, they're also asking which of these is the worst one to be bitten by. And at some point, it becomes not too much of a worthwhile discussion too, because it's like I've said this a lot of times before, but it's like wondering too much about which type of wood is fueling a bonfire to jump into. It doesn't really matter. You need to get out of the fire and roll around on the ground. So the short answer is probably tiger rattlesnake by the only indicator that we really have. And the slightly more complicated answer is whichever rattlesnake bites you and probably has the most amount of venom going into you is the most dangerous one. So there was a guy, I'm not sure if this was the same person that had Antivenom. Oh yeah, he had Antivenom, had to be shipped by private jet from Phoenix. So there, you may have noticed that we are not alone on YouTube when it comes to rattlesnakes and other venomous snakes and working with them. You may have also noticed that we do things a little bit differently than a lot of those guys. So, we're not trying to make enemies or anything like that. I would just say that I think it is a real bummer when people are using these animals to essentially perform stunts and putting themselves in peril. And then when they are inevitably bitten by those animals, then need to rely on professional organizations to come in and save them. And that is what happens, is that people have these animals, they get them easily, they do dumb things with them, the inevitable happens, and then everybody else, like the organization that had to supply the antivenom for that instance, and others, have to then rush in and save them and maybe even short their own supply and their own potential safety as a result. So, we're going to stay on this side of things with the way that we handle these animals. But yeah, that is one of the unfortunate aspects of the more like clown-like side of venomous snake work online, is that sometimes you have to fly in antivenom from Phoenix or somewhere, or Venom 1 or something, because you didn't do the work you're supposed to do. Hey, Stephen, I've heard that most insurance companies will not cover snakebite treatments if the patient has alcohol in their bloodstream. I actually don't think that that's true. I think that would actually be a really difficult case to make, even if you were an insurance company to do that. I think maybe if, they'll cover, I think insurance companies will still cover that if you were impaired and got into a car accident and did something stupid like that. I think that it is probably still covered. But I don't know. I'm not too knowledgeable about that. I just don't know haven't heard of a specific exception for drunk people handling rattlesnakes. Let's see. Hello, Boardman, Ohio. These are all great. I appreciate everybody's comments too. I'm just kind of going through and looking for questions and not reading while I'm reading all. I really appreciate everybody. I'm hoping to do more of this stuff. I'm actually going to maybe set up this background so I can have some pictures and things, and maybe some lighting. So just sitting here in the dark. We'll start hanging things around back there. Like I got this dusty paperweight thing I got to figure out something to do with. Maybe I'll hang it up back there. I don't know. We'll see. For Arizona black rattlesnakes, do you think they've adapted to be able to function in cooler temps? That is probably a part of it. That is probably one of the reasons that they are darker snakes. Rattlesnakes have evolved this numerous times. Arizona black rattlesnakes, northern Pacific rattlesnakes in some regions, southern Pacific rattlesnakes in upper elevations in their range, timber rattlesnakes in the northeast, in eastern Massasaugas in much of those areas. A lot of rattlesnakes in cooler environments are black or have the ability to become black. So I would be surprised if Arizona black rattlesnakes, that is not one of the main reasons why they are black. I know quite a few people have been bitten by rattlesnakes. One local farmer who was bitten 3 times. Yeah, I know a lot of people too, and that's an interesting thing that happens. Is that there tends to be, even with people that do this professionally, there are people that have been bitten 1 or 0 times in accidents, and then there's people that are bitten like 5 or 6 times, and they've only been doing it for a few years. If somebody's bitten 3 times, I don't know who you're speaking of, so I could be very wrong about this. But I would say it might be time for a review of operational behavior in those situations. Can an eastern, I'm assuming eastern diamondback, can eastern live and survive in Arizona heat? No. They need specific microhabitat, just like anything else would. They wouldn't even know what to do here. They need stump holes and gopher tortoise burrows and things like that. That's why they're imperiled out there, because even they can't even survive in their own native land after the forest is wiped out and replanted and changed dramatically. They're having a lot of problems there. So unfortunately, eastern diamondback rattlesnakes are on the way out, and they're also unfortunately in a state region that still thinks that that has a very hard time understanding that perhaps not eradicating everything natural for the nearest, to put up another dozen Dollar Generals maybe isn't in everybody's best interest. We have eastern Massasaugas in northeastern Ohio. How dangerous are those compared to larger rattlesnakes? So danger, that word. So if you're bitten by one, that can be a bad situation. But it's harder to be bitten by one because they're smaller and they live in areas that people don't tend to be bitten of. The strike range on them is small. They have small mouths. So unless you're not picking them up, you're probably not going to be bitten by one. Accidental bites, truly accidental bites, or someone's bitten on the leg or a foot or something when they're just walking around. Yeah, that's less likely to happen with such a small snake. However, there is a different danger there that happens in the Northeast, or happens in those places where rattlesnake bites are incredibly rare. And I've had this happen to friends of mine where, so a friend of mine was bitten by a timber rattlesnake. I'm not going to be able to tell the story completely accurate, but this will make my point pretty well. He was bitten by a timber rattlesnake doing his work in Pennsylvania, and went to the hospital, and none of the doctors had any experience with it. They didn't necessarily know what to do. So they sent him to another hospital where the same kind of circumstance. And then they gave him like 1 vial of antivenom or something, and 6 might be more of an appropriate start. Anyway, he had a very difficult time. And it wasn't at that point because of the venom itself. It was because there was not a general level of experience. It was their first time. It was their first one that they've seen. And I think if you were in Ohio and bitten by a Massasauga, if you managed to do that, then that would be something I would be concerned with. This is not saying that there's worse doctors in Ohio. I'm saying that they probably haven't seen rattlesnake bites. Not like here. They're probably very experienced with rattlesnake bites, and it's just not a matter of public health that they need to deal with. So that would a potential different danger. Are there copperheads and cottonmouths in Arizona? There are not. The closest of that genus, of the Echistrodon genus, there is to Arizona is in the Big Bend region of Texas. There is the broad-banded copperhead, formerly Trans-Pecos copperhead, but nothing over here. Unit crew, Colonel Sanders, buckets. Now I'm hungry. Thanks, Ray. All right. Hey, thanks for that comment about being able to tell we care, and that makes a difference. Yeah, we do a lot. We're actually having a good time with this because this is the stuff that we would talk about and do anyway. In fact, we did this for, if you look, like there's a reason why we just like things restarted suddenly a couple of years ago now. We were doing this the whole time. We just weren't filming it. So now it's fun. It's a great way to get lots of good questions and kind of just have a dialogue with people. But yeah, we very much enjoy doing this. I don't know. It's like that cheesy thing. Like if you love it, it's not work. I mean, this just seems like an extension of, something that we're already doing. Hold on, I'm getting messages from Jeff about something. Better look. Hang on. Oh, okay. Nothing. I thought I might have something to say about this. All right. With snowbird season starting up, how does this affect your removal rate? It affects it a lot, and it's hard to know exactly how much of it has to do with that because, well, there is definitely a classification of removals and inspections that we get where somebody has been gone for the summer and then come back and and they found that their house is being lived in by rodents, and that's just an aspect of not being there, is that kind of thing. So so that picks up, but usually that starts in September. In October, the majority of the calls they're probably starting like right now. That's why I'm kind of like watching the line right now, is because even though temperatures are starting to get colder at night, the really active part comes like right at dark and then the next hour, and they're moving. They're just traveling. They're going to dens. They're doing stuff. They're going through people's yards, that kind of stuff. And a lot of those people are seasonal residents that may even have those dens in their yard. So there's this detection period. And I think the snowbirds are kind of coinciding and running into these other behavioral norms that we're hitting. So we can have a day like today. There weren't that many snake calls run at all. I ran one today. And there's a couple others run, but every night there's going to be some that just light up. Some of those are going to be snowbirds. For people not from Arizona, a snowbird is a seasonal resident that spends the summer somewhere else and then comes back to their house when it cools off to spend the winter here. We have a pretty good population of seasonal residents, and our time of just enjoying the freeways without traffic has come to a close. But also, we don't have snakes to run across town for as much, so it kind of works out okay. How readily can a rattlesnake change from one prey to another? So a snake will eat as much as it can, but the thing is after it eats, a lot of times they just take themselves out of the picture. They eat something and then they crawl off to go digest it under cover or under protection. So they're just not in a place where they're going to be, where additional prey is going to be available. But if it presented itself and it had room still, it will eat it. For instance, I had a little Mojave rattlesnake in there that I had some pinky mice that are way too small to feed it. And I had several of them, and I need to get rid of them. I had to thaw them out, and I'm like, these are going to go bad if I don't feed them to somebody. So I just gave them all. He ate them all. He had like 5 of them really fast. So it's, as much as they can eat, but basically it's the same as like you. After you eat, you will not continue to just hang out in the restaurant all day. And if you did, you would probably just keep eating and not, feel great eventually. But you just take yourself out of the picture. It's very much like that. When am I taking part in another live reptile show? So let me look, because I have, let's see here. I'm looking to see when we have an event coming up. There's a couple of things. So first, we are going to be at the Phoenix Reptile Expo. And I got to put that on on our Facebook page so people know. But we'll have a table at the Phoenix Reptile Show. We'll have a bunch of our animals there. I will be there. Elizabeth will be there. I think Marissa will probably be there at some point. Maybe Nick. Jeff might stop by if he's around. And we will see. And then there's another event. This is actually a fun one. I'm not good at the old Facebook right now. I'm trying to find where they put our events, and I can't find them. There it is. Okay, events. So the next place that I'm presenting is on November 7th. And it's a partnership with the Desert Foothills Land Trust, which does a lot of really amazing work up here in my area, in the Cave Creek, Arizona area, of managing properties and land to try to keep the character of the place and do a lot of conservation work. So I do work with them on rattlesnake stuff. And one of those things is I'm going to be giving a presentation. So some of you may have seen it. It's the standard fact and fiction presentation that I give. It is, even though there will be rattlesnakes there and the topic is rattlesnakes, what this presentation is really about is our brains. If you fear rattlesnakes, this is probably something that will be really interesting to you, because we don't try to convince you to not be scared of snakes. But if you understand why you fear them and the way your brain operates and why it does that thing that it does when a snake is in front of you, most people, when they have that experience, have no choice but to question, why am I scared of these things at all? And that's kind of what we're talking about. Our brains are just so bad at certain things, and it results in so many things that we don't necessarily like. Most people don't like to be fearful of things. So that's what that presentation is about. That is on November 7th, sorry, at the Holland Center in Cave Creek, Arizona, or that might be Scottsdale. It's a northern Phoenix area. Anyway, you can find information about how to get into that. It's free on our Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/snake removal. I wish I had a different name for that, snake removal. I set that when Facebook started. So yeah, I am very happy to hear anybody that gets over their fear of snakes or challenges it because of the information that we're giving. That's my favorite thing to hear. Do I recommend finding good spots to go herping? I have a few spots, but I only found one snake, if any. So this is a specialty topic. It's about herping, which is finding snakes in the wild. And I will say this, okay, this is probably the best. This is better advice than better information than any spot that I can give you for snakes. Pick any native area, any wild area in the desert, and just start going there systematically. Go there, explore the area, explore it all, check it at different times, check it at different locations. So I'm like, just go frequent it. If you think there's rattlesnakes there, frequent the area. And whenever you find something, write it down. However you want to do it, take note of it, and then do it again. Just keep doing that. Figure it out. Any place that is a known spot, like anything that's like, here's a place where rattlesnakes are known to be, that they're not any different than one another for the most part. They can be, but you will learn how to develop what those spots will be in those one areas. And if you do it yourself in public land, and then don't tell anyone about it, you now have your very own little place that you can go and observe rattlesnakes and other animals and learn about them without worrying about other herpers getting in there and messing it up. It's the best thing in the world to do. So once you figure out, once you become less spot dependent and learn how to generate your own spots that will be truly ones that you're only looking at, that's the good stuff. I wish I would have known that earlier in my life. Instead of chasing spots, chase methods. Chase the data that you can get from those informations. Every time you run into a snake, it's not an accident. That snake chose to be there. So it's worthwhile to try to figure out why. And then you can predict it. Once you get that information and you get 10 different points that's saying, I see my first rattlesnake around 9 o'clock in the morning, then you'll know when to go, right? So that's what I would do. That's the best way to do it. Okay. I'm going to answer the rest of the questions that are currently in the chat. and then I am going to go eat food and stop working. All right, let's see. Can a rattlesnake or any other venomous snake strike and bite while it is swallowing food, or would it have to regurgitate the food first? It would have to spit it out. I mean, it could maybe do something, but once the food is going down the mouth, it is all encompassing. That's part of the reason that they're so careful. When a rattlesnake chooses to take prey into its mouth, it is defenseless. So you'll often see if a snake is feeding, it will look around and be very careful to make sure no one else is around first. It's also a mistake by many first-time rattlesnake keepers if they're keeping them, because they want to watch their animal eat, and sometimes it just disturbs the snake, and they don't want to do it while someone's watching. And they've really just got to put the food in there sometimes and leave it alone. Are Arizona squirrels or other mammals like California ground squirrels where they resist the venom? Yeah, there's a number of animals that can develop resistance to venom. Here in Arizona, maybe the most notable one that shares habitat and often lives right alongside them, rattlesnakes that is, are the pack rats. And you see us a lot looking for snakes or pack rats to release animals into. And pack rats may have, or wood rats, same thing, may have, depending on the individual, different degrees of immunity to rattlesnake venom. That's an interesting bit of research that I learned at the last Biology of the Pit Vipers conference. And it's not necessarily known why that variance occurs. Some of them are highly immune and some are not, and maybe from previous bites. Maybe they get immunity from living, I don't know. But yeah, that's the most notable one, is that pack rats may be immune to rattlesnake venom. Some of them. So it's interesting. Yeah, rock squirrels will kill anything. They will go after anything they can. What rattlesnakes are in Salt Lake City, Utah? Those would be Great Basin rattlesnakes. You might hear some of the locals call them diamondbacks, and up in the mountains to the west or the east of Salt Lake, call them timber rattlesnakes. They're all Great Basins. Can and do snakes climb block walls? Rattlesnakes can't. Some snakes can do it if the wall is in certain condition. So this is one of those, like, really think about what the wall is like, right? If it's a brick wall and there's lots of gaps, spaces in there, then animals that are good at using those, utilizing those gaps and spaces are going to be able to climb. There are snakes here, like coach whips, king snakes, gopher snakes, that are good climbers, that climb bark of trees regularly to get into birds' nests and that kind of thing. They're going to do pretty good with those things. Rattlesnakes, which are, they can climb, but they're not as good at climbing, will spend more time on the ground. They're made to be ground-born ambush predators. They're heavy-bodied. They don't articulate in the same way. They're not necessarily going to be able to climb that. In fact, if a rattlesnake can climb up a block wall, it has to be really bad shape. The climbing snake thing is an issue that, and this is, I'm not describing you in any way when I say this. I'm talking about those comments I see on Facebook where somebody will see a snake that is climbing a bush with lots of stuff around and things to hang on to, and then they'll say, "See, they can climb. They can get right over your snake fencing." Not realizing, like, because something can climb a tree doesn't mean it can climb everything. Like, I can climb a tree. Well, maybe not anymore, but in my youth, I could climb a tree, but I can't just belly crawl straight up the side of a building. So, they can't climb up the side of a wall unless the wall is really bad, providing all kinds of little leverage and stuff like that. And, it's just one of those things where a lot of times the people that are really getting after me online about that are people that just got to think it through a little bit. That's always one of the fun things about this whole endeavor, is just like people things. Like when people see a baby rattlesnake and it's this big on their screen because it's a close-up, like, that's the biggest rattlesnake I've ever seen. It's huge, and it's like 8 inches long. Because things that are big on a camera don't necessarily mean. Sorry, I'm going off on a rant. It's just something I've been thinking about today. All right. Yeah, where your sister goes and walks Scottsdale, like I could write in the 101. There's a lot. That's where we go. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Okay, last one from Hans, just in case. Okay. Do snakes have teeth in the back of their mouths or just behind the mouth? So rattlesnakes have fangs in the front, and they also have teeth all the way through. And the fangs inject the teeth, help walk it down like a ratchet to help it eat. All snakes, well, any of the snakes here are going to have some method of teeth, and that's one of the main functions. That's what those teeth are made to do: to bite and hang on to, and then walk essentially over the top of food to help bring it down to where the muscles in the neck can take over and pull it down. The rattlesnakes just have specialized teeth in the front, fangs, that inject venom first, but they have all the same teeth that other snakes do, and coral snake do as well. They just have front fixed fangs. They're different structures than rattlesnake fangs, but they're there. So anyway, I say this every time. I like doing these. I'm gonna try to do more of them. I was just kind of messing around tonight because I know I needed to get into the comments on this last video. So I thought this was a good way to do it. Anybody that I answered their comments are in that video, I just copied and pasted the thing saying, "Hey, look at the last live." That's where I answered the comments. So to do this, these comments or these chats are good because at some point this winter we're going to run out of videos of snake removals, and this is where we're going to start pulling content from. It's like one of the constant challenges of anybody that creates content or anything is try to differentiate between the things that we find interesting and what people that we're presenting to find interesting. And questions like this are, you think that we're helping you, but it's actually the opposite. Like this is how we learn what people need to know. And when people ask the same question, a lot of times, that's where we know, you know what, we should just make a video about that. So we'll be doing some of that. I guess this will be the last one. Tar Heel, has you ever got bit by a rattlesnake? Yes, one time. And it's actually in our long form videos. Look for the video about the time that I got bitten by a rattlesnake. And I will leave it there. Thank you, everybody. I will see you sometime soon. And we have a new video coming up in the long form in a few days. See you later.